So, what do you think the Princess Royal would have been like on the rugby pitch, and where would she have played?
Well, I think she probably would have opened side flankers. You'd have your eye out. We were looking, definitely. I mean, that was an amazing opportunity, obviously, set up by Tins. It's not every day you go to Windsor Castle. I've got to say, I was disappointed when I turned up. We were met, parked outside. I went in, and I had visions. And again, I wasn't probably the most studious student of all time, but I had visions of it being like Henry VIII, just as far as you could see, tables and trays of food, tureens, you know, an elephant, you know, grilled or whatever it would be, you know, an 8-bird feast where they take an ostrich and they stuff it with swan and, you know, and all this kind of things, and jellies and all this kind of stuff, like as far as the eye can see, and people looking after your every whim. I was in there for an hour and no one offered me a cup of tea. And when I found a bell, and I rang a bell, and this woman fired out of the sideboard. She was on like a sort of a spring-loaded thing. She popped out, her name was Polly. She said, "Hi Polly, I'm the house, I work for the household, what do you need?" And I said, well, I'm gasping, if I'm honest with you. You know, she goes, well, what would you like, tea or coffee? And I went with tea because I thought the whole country was built on tea. I imagine there was a wing of the castle, you know, dedicated to tea making, just people just treading the leaves and stirring, ready to serve you. And it was a very good cup of tea. Coffee, I didn't think they'd know anything about. They brought it out, again, nothing, no accompaniments, no biscuits. I was like, this is rubbish. So I rang the bell again, and she fires back out again, and she went, what would you like? I said, well, you know, cut the biscuits, stuff like that. I thought when she would come back, it would be sort of a silver salver with the finest macaroons from La Durée in France, handmade biscuits. If I'm honest with you, it was a plate with a load of family circle from Christmas. You could see it was family circle, with a load of broken bourbons. It was, I was about to swear, it was rubbish. I then tried to order a club sandwich and they got really annoyed. And so we interviewed them and it was great, and the interview was amazing. And as you can imagine, a lot was edited out. One of the highlights was the Prince and Princess of Wales were discussing things, and I said to them, as a couple, are you quite competitive? And William said, yes, I am very competitive. You know, she cheats at everything. We obviously cut that out because it would have been the headlines all over the papers. William says Catherine cheats. So we got that cut out, but they were very competitive, a normal family. They obviously push their kids to play sport. Each one of them understands the value of sport, the importance of what it brings people together. You know, we've got a obesity epidemic in this country. We've got kids playing less sport than ever. They're glued to their iPhones, iPads. We've got adults that are out of shape everywhere. We're selling off school playing fields all the time. Kids need to play sport. We're meant to, especially boys. You know, the reason all these young boys have got behavioural problems, it's not because of you know, society or iPhones. It's because we're not meant to be sitting in classroom. Men are meant to be physical. Men are meant to be out there playing and performing and doing stuff, physical stuff. That's what kids and schools get the best out of, is when they're playing sport, playing activities. They're always constantly doing stuff. You know, girls are different in a certain way.
Yeah.
And you know, we were talking all about this kind of stuff, and Tyndall had obviously told William that at the particular time we were going to the World Cup 2019, we were going to work on a cruise ship. All the hotels had sold out in France. A company took on a cruise ship, 2,000 people, so you could go on this sort of floating hotel. You could get on the piers, you could, you know, go to the casino, you could watch the games, you'd be ferried to and from the matches, and we were meant to be entertainment there. And Tyndall, being the real brown-nosed he is obviously sucked up to William, told him, they actually called him Solsey around the palace, because the only thing you see hanging out the back of any of the Royals' bottoms is the soles of his shoes. And he's a proper kiss, you know what I mean, proper brown. And obviously he told William that we were going on this cruise ship, and William said, oh, you know, Haskell, you know, I hear you're going on a cruise ship. What are you going to do on the cruise ship? I suppose you're going to be the anchor. And I turned around and said, well, I'm going to be something that sounds like an anchor, but spelled differently. And the Princess Royal turned around and went, yes, I can see that. And I was like, there's not a place you can go when you've been called by the Princess Royal. Obviously they cut that out. So she's amazing, she's gay. Her knowledge and information about rugby, about score lines, about history is second to none. She absolutely put us in our place. And when you've got 3 members of the royal family who live and breathe sport, their kids play sport, they believe in sport, they understand the power of sport to fix things. You know, if kids have got anxiety or depression, the first thing a doctor says or therapist says is, take up cooking or take up sport. Kids who don't play sport, adults who don't play some sort of activity, it could just be walking the dog, it could be playing paddle, it could be doing anything. You're not meant to be sitting down at a desk all day. And I think that's the important thing to remember. You don't have to be a meathead like me, but you can do certain things. And people are much happier when they've got a routine centred around training, sport, camaraderie, teamwork, loss, failure. That's the secret to life, and they understand that. And I was just blown away by their support, and it was amazing, you know.
Great. I think that's a brilliant moment now to